Right? And we are live. Hey, everybody. I am Haley Gray, and this is my guest, David LaRocco. Welcome. I'm so happy to have you here. If you guys catch us on the live, give us a hashtag live. If you catch us on the replay, give us a hashtag replay. Give us some support and let us know that you're out there. Moral support is always a beautiful thing, especially on a cold Friday night. So, welcome.
Well, thank you, Haley, for having me.
This is a lot of fun. We are doing an event together on Tuesday, and we're going to be talking about getting it done in 2021. And David is one of our amazing speakers. And David, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do and what you're going to be talking about?
Well, I'm David LaRocco. I am
And we are live.
trained chiropractor. And 17 years ago, or actually 16 years ago, I had overcome an autoimmune disease through a little bit of trial and error and applied that to my life. And then, of course, applied it to practice and applied it to everyday living. So I'm just a passionate individual who is been exercising all types of exercising for the last, let's say, 12 years, eating cleanly, studying mindset, just studying peak performance and just applying it into my life. So being a results-driven person and a very passionate person, I'm pretty much just an individual, just another person like whoever's maybe watching this or anybody else for that matter that just takes, his curiosity, let's say, into kind of finding answers and asking more why and just going down rabbit holes and finding solutions that work.
I like it. Yeah. And I mean, I think that sometimes we forget that medicine is a practice.
Yeah, we do. We often do. And I think that often people will confuse medicine for health. So, and what that means is obviously medicine has its place in the world. It saves lives every day, but it has no place in regards to getting one healthy.
Right.
And when I was at my worst 16 years ago with an autoimmune disease, I got down to 91 pounds. I almost died because of malnourishment and complications of the autoimmune disease. And they saved my life through steroids and IV drips and kind of stabilized me at about 105 pounds. And I slowly gained through, eating and taking the medication, but I just was in just not wanting that. And after 2.5 years of living that way, lots of complications, and believe me, I'm really skating over it. My father also had brain cancer, so I'd taken the initiative to kind of learn more about nutrition, diet, mindset, kind of delve back into what first piqued my curiosity when I was 18 years old, when I first listened to Tony Robbins' Personal Growth. And I just said, and I said, I got to apply this, but I was so riddled with anxiety. You don't know something until after the fact, or someone kind of pulls you out of it. And I didn't understand how deep I was in until my father passed. And then I just said, this is the line in the sand. I'm not going to do this anymore. And what I didn't do anymore was continue down the path of self-deprecation through food. And I don't know what it's like to be a drug addict. I don't know what it's like to be an alcoholic, but I do want to know what it's like to be addicted to food and addicted to certain emotional states that I was manipulating through food. Uh, so once I started understanding it and applying it every day, and I saw the compounding effect and the slow effects of it, I then, of course, added exercise into that. And then I started to add more deeper layers of the mindset, and it's a constant practice every day, and it's even hard to believe when I even say that I've been working out for 12 years. When I remember in my 30s, just I didn't know what I was doing when I would go to the gym. I didn't know what I was doing when I was eating. I read books and took a lot of faith, made a lot of mistakes, asked a lot of questions, and I still do to this day. So But I think the catalyst was my father passing, and then I just applied with what I knew. And somebody must have knowledge, and knowledge is not power. It's only power when you apply it. So
Mhm.
I hope that's valuable for you. And it's probably a little long-winded, which I'm notorious for.
Oh, no, it's good. And the cool thing is that, that applies to, a lot of different aspects of our lives. You can learn how to build a business, but unless you actually go out and go do something with the knowledge you're being given, it's not going to matter.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm just as guilty of it, Haley. Right? I have knowledge. I don't apply it all the time.
Mhm.
You stick to what you're comfortable with. You stick to what you know.
Mhm.
Human beings are not designed to go out and risk, right? We're risk adverse. Uh, we
For good
have
reason.
this, yeah, for good reason, right? It kept us alive through
Self-preservation, yeah.
um, self-preservation, kept us alive for millions of years. So, we will do what we know is not good, even though we know it's not good, and there's no logic and no sense behind it. And I knew what I was doing was hurting myself, but there was that moment where I said I could either stay on this path and continue to go down this road and take this
Mhm.
medication, or I can do something a little bit different. And I kind of equate it to, you're coming to an edge of a cliff that's really scary. Now, you're coupled with the necessary tools that are on your back that will inevitably protect you if you use right, train right, and whatnot. But so many of us are so afraid to trust the fact that we have the tools, and that when we let go and we jump, that we're going to fall down. And you very well may do that, but as I've realized in life from all the failures I've gone through or the mistakes, um, I'm still not under a bridge embankment, living homeless. I'm still standing, um, and there's some dark times in there, and I just think that
Mhm.
if we had that open mindset, that a great book I like by Mindset by Carol Dweck, if we keep that open mindset, it's amazing to us how what we find our strengths are in exercise and nutrition. It starts to find us, and it starts to become this symbiotic fit. And too often when I'm working with clients, it's that I want this, David, and you got to help me get it. And first things first, as a doctor, um, I can't do that unless you want to do that. You kind of make that necessary changes. Because then if you go out and you leave the office, which, like when we leave and we do a seminar like we're going to do, what happens is inevitably you get caught up in the everyday life and you fall off, and you go, it's all right. It's just one time. And you don't build that
Mhm.
habit and that discipline.
Right.
And I just knew that I had to do this because I wasn't going to live the way I was living, and I'm leaving out a lot of detail of how bad I was, and
No.
um, I mean, and for the sake too that not everyone may understand what I went through, but when you're taking yourself off medication, which I don't always recommend people to do, I kind of just said, I know I can do this. The body's a self-healing, self-regulating, healing organism. Let food be thy medicine.
Mhm.
I'm going to do this, and my will to do it was stronger than my will to go backwards. And um, as Tony Robbins, I've heard this. You burn the bridges and you take, you burn the boats and you take the island. I was not going to go back ever, never have, and thankfully, I've never taken medication for the autoimmune disease since. And and I have a lot of stress since that throughout my life, my 16 years of being recovered. And things have happened, but never to the point where I'll ever go back there again.
Right. No. And what I think is kind of interesting is there is a clear correlation between physical and mental health and overall performance. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, yeah, and there's a lot of science behind this through those that form at their peak. So a lot of it was I didn't. So we all use labels to understand things. So I had a lot of anxiety. I still have a very dynamic mind. Some people call it ADHD.
Hmm.
I just call it extremely creative. So I've learned through meditation, through exercise, through understanding the brain, just through books, how to kind of garner the control of, I don't even want to use that word control, kind of be able to master my own, thoughts. And meditation for the last 4 years has been paramount. But if you, number one, can't see yourself, right? So if we closed our eyes for a second and we just had this vision of ourselves. Now, when you close your eyes and you hold that vision of yourself, does it look like yourself now? Or does it look like yourself back 20 years ago? Does it look like yourself that you want to be in the future?
Hmm.
And a great exercise I love doing is imagine yourself what you look like when you're 20, 50, 70. Now when you look at when you're 70, I don't know about you, but I see myself as more physically in shape than I do now, at
Hmm.
47. And I see myself really standing on, with alongside the shoulders of other giants that are just serving and helping people. So these world class athletes all run the race, the performance in their mind first, because if you cannot see it and hear with my eyes closed, it doesn't exist out there. I did not understand that when I did this. But if you first do not think that you can, you never will get out of the starting gate. There's got to be some degree of faith, some belief, some um, not belief just in yourself, but the belief that what this person is teaching you is on point. And also, too, there will be speed bumps. There will be challenges along the way. That's the hero's journey. But the mindset is,
Hmm.
again, I like the book by Carol Dweck because if you have an open mindset, you'll navigate channels, right? It's be
Hmm.
like water, as Bruce Lee said. But if you have a fixed mindset and you're like, oh, I can't do this, I'm going to give up, I'm destined to be fat or overweight or have these ailments, then it's one of those things that I get it. It's what choice do you have? Do you stay there where you're wherever you're at and you're not happy with, or do you move forward? And that mindset is so paramount. So I hope that answers that question
Absolutely.
without being too awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I've seen that myself. If you can't visualize it or you won't visualize it, if you can't think it, you can't do it. Can't be it.
Yeah. You're right, and for the mindset that is the anxious brain, right? And I could speak of how I've operated, and I'm fear adverse. So there are people that like to move away from pain. It's as would you rather save $1,000 or keep someone from stealing $1,000? So most people would rather keep someone from stealing $1,000. So I just don't want to be fat. Well, okay, do you want to be just not fat, or do you want to be healthy? So it's that the way you talk to yourself as well. It's the way that we communicate. I mean, one of the hardest things I ever did when I was going through this healing process was look at myself and tell myself in the mirror that I love you, um, because we can't often be what we want to be if we don't like ourselves, and we're going to be stuck in the mud if we're constantly looking at ourselves as never good enough, failure, or I have this anxiety, or I have this brain that I have learning disabilities and ADHD. Um, you know, and yeah, those labels are like, oh, that's what it was. But okay, that was just, my brain is more dynamic, right? So I have to learn to be more creative. And you take a Charles Schwab who is dyslexic and create,
Hmm.
Schwab investing, and I'm dyslexic too. I often struggle still with spelling and processing. And when someone speaks to me, I want to write down something and I reverse it. Um, but it just makes you work that much harder and tirelessly having that mindset that's open and passionate about, just being better.
Cool. So tell me a little bit about what you're going to speak about on Tuesday.
Well, a lot of it comes down to these fundamental steps of being able to accurately decide. Kind of first, you got to figure out where you're at, right? I think the biggest problem is too many people go out, they join a gym, they invest in a program, and they don't know where they're at. And too many patients I've seen over the years, they overestimate what they can do in a year and they underestimate what they can do in 5 years. So we want to get a self-assessment, right? So we want to become our own doctors. We want to
Hmm.
become aware of what we're doing and where our body's at. And a lot of it comes down to um, understanding when something is a red light, where you're not going to proceed forward down that right now. It's not ever, it's just not right now. Or a cautionary light, meaning that, okay, go into this, test it, see how your body responds nutritionally, physically,
Hmm.
emotionally, as well as what exercises are right for me. So what do I want to achieve? So again, what it comes down to is really getting that self-assessment, understanding how to apply it. Accountability is key. Building that mindset of going from a should to a must, making it in part of your daily habits and rituals and routines, and kind of parlaying from the other speakers, which they're going to talk a lot about mindset. And honestly, if you don't have the component of the right mindset to one go into and say, okay, well, I'm not a doctor. I don't know any of this. That's fine. You don't have to. But you're coming into and you want to go run a marathon. Okay. Nobody goes out and runs a marathon right away, at least unless you're insane and you want to be in a lot of pain and suffering. I've run marathons before. It's a lot of preparation, a lot of training.
Absolutely.
So when you're going into it, you got to first know where your body's at, and then thereafter, you got to know whether it's no, cautiously go, and then really from there, just kind of bring it all together of, okay, what am I going to do? And then understanding the mindset of you're gonna do something and you're going to try it for at least 3 months. I always tell my kids, whatever you do is 3 months. Why is that? Because 3 months, after 3 months, it will be a habit permanently ingrained in your neuronal pathway. That is science. That's not my opinion. If you do not enjoy it after those 3 months, on to the next thing. But if it's not working for you right away, like that's a no go, then obviously you're not going to go down that path. If it's cautionary, you do it after a few weeks. Hey, this isn't, my body's just not responding, because pain is not weakness leaving the body, which is too often of a mantra I've heard in gyms, at least to stick out your chest and bang on it. And there's good pain and there's bad pain, and we got to identify that too. So those are some key components that I'm going to be speaking about with my time.
That's awesome. That's really cool.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's interesting to me how, from a mindset perspective, the physical, the mental, the emotional, the time management, the performance pieces, all tie together into our overall performance in our jobs, in our lives, in our businesses. And it makes a transformative difference.
100%, Haley. You couldn't say it any more better than that. I am a better father, a better friend, a better husband, a better human being when I work out and take care of David. This is a temple that's borrowed. And if you were driving the most expensive vehicle in the world, or at least a $2 million vehicle, because that's what science figures our body's worth,
Mm-hmm.
and they've kind of equated it in numbers. So would you put in lousy gasoline in that $2 million vehicle? Would you maintain it and service it? Would you take care of it? Would you clean it? Would you wash it? Of course. So habits are just ingrained, and I know how much better I perform when I take care of myself. And I was thinking about it,
Mm-hmm.
that so many people tell me they don't have time. I don't have time to work out, or I'm too exhausted at the end of the day.
Isn't it funny how they do
Okay,
that?
Yeah. Well, it's the story you tell yourself, and that's where I know the other speakers are going to speak about that mindset. And I'm too just as guilty of it. Believe me, there's days, but that juice, that dopamine hit that I look for without getting it through food, I get it through exercising. And I found what works for me through experimentation. So I don't do marathons anymore. Um, I like the quick, hard, get in, get out, not all the time. I mean, my workout wasn't anything more than 16 minutes today, and I was dead in a good way. I like that feeling of going to the edge. Now, others may not, and that's where you have to understand your body. And I was talking to somebody today. Honestly, based upon listening to this person, it seemed as if Pilates would be a better fit for her, and I love it. Pilates is a great workout. So it's not about what I think; it's about unlocking with what you've gone through, what you haven't gone through, kind of where you're at, understanding that. That's so key rather than going to a gym blindly, going on a machine and, doing this and doing this. And you're like, I'm going to work, shoulders, back, and legs. And I just go, and I did it too. And I just think to myself, well, it's an old way of thinking. That's ridiculous unless you're going to be a bodybuilder. Like, when in life do we just use our legs? We use our entire body to do movement or work for the most part. And I'm going to pick this up and I'm only going to use my arm as I lean over and I engage my core as I pick up a sticky note. It's those myths that we really need to understand and break down. But it just makes me
That's true.
chuckle when I think about
Now, and going back to the I don't have time for this is kind of interesting because I didn't have time for it either.
that.
And I
Yeah,
mean, I don't. I mean, I haven't with a kid bopping in and out of the hospital and 18 hospitalizations later. I didn't. But I decided to have time for it and lost 175 pounds.
what was
And
that deciding factor to do that?
the deciding factor was I was going to die if I didn't. You know,
But
there's a
I've
point.
spoken to people, Haley, that, and I'm sorry, I've met people who've told me they like, if I don't do this, I'm gonna die. I'm like, okay, why is that important? Well, I got to live for blank.
Mhm.
So your why became strong for you, correct? Like your why to like
Absolutely.
live. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So the
Well, I was so
pain of
focused on taking care of the kids that I realized that I wouldn't be there to take care of them.
if I may share a personal story with you,
Go ahead.
kind of peek something. So when I was getting into exercising, and it was probably right before our third child was born back in '09. And I remember exercising and I was judging my wife who had gained a lot of weight, and I was questioning whether she was happy with our marriage because she had gained so much weight after our third child. So, and I remember asking the question, probably not the best way to ask it, and I've obviously learned since then to be a little bit more um, what's the right word? A better way of asking a question. So I said to her, "Are you happy?" And she goes, "Well, why do you ask that?" I said, "Well, I've noticed you gain weight, and that typically is a sign of you eating your emotions." And I remember that she's like, "Do you not love me? Do you think I'm fat?" And I said, "No, no, no. I do love you." I said, "I just want to know because we like to check in twice a year as a
Mhm.
couple." And she took that, and ever since then, and that was back in, if I recall, 2010 or 2011, she took that and she went and got a personal trainer, which that personal trainer wound up opening a CrossFit gym, and we wound up joining, and the rest is history. How we all kind of ended up in that, and she winds up taking me into an arena that I was so fixed on where I wanted to stay, and then I was like, "Ooh, this is interesting. I want to do this." And I mean, and she looks fantastic, and we work out together, almost every day, 5 days a week. And so I think it's interesting. I didn't mean to do it that way, but then here we are, 10 years later, and she's still kicking butt and taking names. So I'm when you told me about the kids and you lost the weight and you finally just you made you a priority. I was just, I wanted to share that too, because I think that's important.
Yeah. No, for me, it had nothing to do with happiness.
Mm. It just had everything to do with that longevity and health and well-being.
Well, absolutely, because my whole focus has been taking care of 4 young kids. That's how
Mm.
I gained the weight. I was taking care of them. I wasn't taking care of me.
So
And it's an interesting difference in the mindset.
yeah, what is that different mindset from when you were there to now? I'm just curious. That's interesting.
Well, I started prioritizing myself first.
Mm. How did that make you feel initially?
Oh, it sucked.
Okay. Of course, you feel selfish, you feel like a terrible parent.
No, it's not where you want to be, right?
Yeah.
So, it's not necessarily where I chose to be.
It's interesting, right? We don't choose to be in certain places, and all of a sudden we wake up and we like, you know, again, I'm in the opposite spectrum where I'm down to 91 pounds, saying to myself, there's nothing wrong with me as I'm wilting away and dying. This is pre-kids, but you become such, I equate it with like the horse with the blinders in Central Park because I'm from New York,
Hmm.
and they're like this, and they only
Yep.
see here and they don't see outside of here.
Right. It keeps
And
them from spooking.
yeah, yeah, it's tough. Again, as we said earlier in the conversation, our brains are risk adverse. So we have this thing called our limbic system, which keeps us alive. It doesn't keep us happy. And we'll keep doing the same thing because that's the story we tell ourselves. Well, I've got to take care of my kids. I don't have time for myself. And, um, kids see us working out in our garage. I'm very blessed for what we have. And it took us time to build it, but you got to start. I always tell people, I'm like, it doesn't matter what you do. I mean, if you did, I think to myself, if you did a minute of burpees, you, and you've never worked out before, you probably are going to want to die after that minute. And you'll be like,
Probably.
oh, you will dislike burpees really fast, but you will get your heart rate up. And the key component is to some of the fittest athletes in the world are mixed martial arts fighters. Now, I found that to be fascinating because they use about 90% of their capacity, and they train at that 90% capacity at least for an hour and a half a week. So you're really redlining. Now, that obviously has health implications for long term if you do that for a long time, but they have to go fight for rounds and out,
Hmm.
potentially an hour. And boy, until you've done a 3-minute round of boxing, which I've done, you don't realize the amount of work that goes into being trained. And
Hmm.
when you get your heart that strong and you can push yourself to that limit, and again, not everyone's going to be able to do that, right? You got to do the best you
Hmm.
can with what you have. Um, and I can honestly sit here telling you that I could have never imagined that I would ever be sitting here being a dad in his 40s and being in the best physical shape of my life. Um, and the funny thing was, at first it was vanity, and now it's just more for longevity and being an idol for people. Like, man, how do you do that? Um,
Hmm.
my answer would be is one day at a time. Or when should I
Absolutely.
start? Now. Can't do it
Today.
yesterday. Yeah, you can't do it tomorrow. You can't do it tomorrow. Excuse me. You can't do it yesterday. I know. It's like 10:30 at night. Um, I equated to like Forrest Gump. You just started running. You didn't have a plan, and you do need a plan, right? You just can't run and as I've done, and um, I've run enthusiastically in the wrong direction, and I've experimented a lot, and eventually it comes in time and place. That's why I always tell people 3 months. However, in the first 6 to 8 weeks, you're going to see real change and transformation. However, when people ask me, when did you see the changes when you started healing yourself of the disease? And the answer would be the first 3 to 4 days. I had
Interesting.
I had energy like I never had, and like, what did you do? And I said, I pretty much did an elimination diet before it was a thing. I eliminated every possible allergen. I was in such rough shape. I had to puree and make smoothies and baby foods. And
Onto the chicken and
come,
zucchini diet, huh?
honestly, I didn't even do meat for a while. I was a vegan for 3 years, and I found out that my body just wanted more. Again, I've done practically every diet under the sun. The Yeah, the zucchini and chicken. Well, you're just bringing back memories. I still like it, believe me. Just um,
Yeah, I've had a few friends that have ended up on elimination diets, and it ends up as zucchini and chicken. There you go.
yeah,
Do
that's
that
pretty
for a
accurate.
few weeks.
Yeah, no, no, you go crazy, and believe me, I tell people, like, when did you give your the op like someone asked me one time, when did you know that you were able to deviate and to cheat a little bit? Because I was in such a bad way and I was so sick. I gave it a year because one, I didn't understand how nervous and anxious I was and how much fear I had inside of me. And I remember the first time I went to a wedding and I ate before I went to the wedding. And my wife was asking me, it was in Toronto, and my wife's like, "Are you going to be okay?" And I go, "Yeah, I'm Italian, New York, and food is love." And I remember, going there and was like, "Oh, I'm not tempted." And mainly because I had come so far and I was amazed of how healthy I was. And I was like, why the heck would I ever want to go back to where I once was? Um, it's, I equate
Yeah.
it to like putting your hand on a hot stove when you're a kid. Uh,
Mhm.
so I feel blessed, at 31 that I overcame this disease. And I know now still me, I'm still human. Believe me, I do want a piece of pizza. And I often joke when I eventually meet my maker. I say that I want to I want a corner Sicilian, and the New Yorkers would know that it's from Sal's Pizza in New York. And I don't even know if I'd want soda anymore. I don't really miss soda. I probably have Zevia, but a corner Sicilian, not gluten free and not dairy free because it is not the same. And again, I would always encourage people too that when we're on the call that if you are able and you want to test it, to have a time where you have a cheat. Now, the problem with that may be is if you've suffered with RA, if you've suffered with lupus, or if you've suffered with irritable bowel or Crohn's or celiac, you're going to pay for it and you're going to realize, you know what? I'd rather have a piece of cacao nib rather than a slice of pizza. Yeah, because my joints are going to kill me. I'm going to have a massive headache. These are all the things that I experiment. If I get glutened, God forbid if I have an artificial sugar, if I have dairy, my body just went, a couple rounds with Mike Tyson. Not to get too graphic, it hates me. And and I also know brain fog does come back. I mean, there's a lot of science behind what I'm talking about. I'm not just
Yeah.
speaking haphazardly.
Inflammation is real.
It is 100% real, and it is such a common entity the in our society. I would say that I've read 99% of all diseases have inflammation. I would say I'm not sure which ones don't. I don't know
Mhm.
of any that can be named, but medicine never works in absolutes anyway, or in that regards. But I mean, God, I could think of all the clients over the years, um, and one sticks out in my mind right now as I'm thinking. This boy was autistic. And the parents brought him to me to adjust. He was very difficult, but I mean, they saw immediate results just with the adjustment. And on top of it, then we got him on some vital nutrients for his brain and started to eliminate an allergen at a time because realistically speaking, families that are used to cooking pasta and meatballs and cheese, that's a tough transition for people to go into. Like, oh my God, I mean, I can't have pasta and pizza. And the answer is not right now, right? So that you feel better about the fact that maybe, just maybe, sometime in your life, you will have the opportunity to have it. but after a few weeks of not having it and then having it again, you're gonna then realize that I don't like the way I feel when I have this. So that's I let people kind of decide that for themselves because I too had to discover the fact that I think of things now, and I was talking about it with a client of mine today, that I don't miss any fast food. Um, it just goes right through you, and it's
Well,
so
and
cheap and
especially when you
disgusting.
have, when you have food allergies and food sensitivities, it's definitely not a thing. And, it ties back to that performance thing and
Yeah,
taking better care of yourself.
yeah, and it's unfortunate, right? I mean, I think we're smart enough to know as humans that the people who advertise and hawk Gatorade and hawk McDonald's, Olympic athletes, the professional athletes, I think people have somewhat of knowledge that I don't think these guys or gals are doing this to create peak performance. Yeah, it's a
No,
great sponsorship. Um, but I think if you have any knowledge, but it's powerful nevertheless because you want to be associated with that athlete for whatever reason, and so you're going to associate yourself with Subway sandwiches because if you like Marshawn Lynch because he advertises for them, and Subway promotes itself as healthier when there's a lot of things you could find that presume to be healthy that could be very unhealthy very quickly because of the
absolutely.
the hidden, fats and bad fats and sugars that are added to it, which is a great book, Sugar Fats All, by the way.
Yep. Cool. Well, thank you so much for joining me tonight.
Yeah. Well, thank
We are
you so much
about
for
out of
having me.
time, but yeah, I look forward to hearing you speak on Tuesday.
Well, thank you. Thank you. I look forward to it as well. And I really appreciate your time and, and doing this with me.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.